Welcome to another movie plot and enjoy the memories. It begins with the reporter Angela standing out front of a Los Angeles fire department. Along with Scott the cameraman, they report on the night shift where they just missed joining a team of firefighters going out on assignment. They end up accompanying Jake's team, who gets fitted for mics, while Fletcher shows off a hook ladder used by firefighters in the 20s and 30s. While they wait around for something interesting to happen, the department's Dalmatian wheelchair teaches Angela how to stop, drop and roll. They give her a tour of their handball court, the dining hall and even the locker room, where no one seems to mind the intrusion. Angela gets along with Jake the most, but Fletcher she overhears making bets to sleep with her tonight when he forgets that he's mic'd up. Finally, the crew respond to a medical emergency at an apartment building and race across town, while the laid-back Fletcher begins to hit on the reporter. Upon arrival, the apartment manager Yuri says that he and the other residents heard screaming from the room of an old woman upstairs. They enter the complex, where homeowners gather around the lobby speculating what happened, while we meet the veterinarian Lawrence. Yuri's wife Wanda directs them upstairs, where Officer James has already arrived, but they failed to gain entry and needed assistance. They get to the ladies' door, where the officer's partner Danny's happy to see another brother in this film and waits for Jake to do his thing. They find the resident Mrs. Espinosa foaming at the mouth and beginning to lash out, but she's unwilling to accept any help for her condition. The light on Scott's camera sets her off and she leaps on James's back, biting out his neck before the group can sedate her. They rush the wounded officer to the hospital for medical assistance, while Fletcher stays upstairs, but the building doors have been locked from the outside. With James bleeding out, his worried partner tells Scott to turn the camera off, but Angie convinces him to let them continue documenting the events. Fletcher suddenly hits the ground, leaving him badly injured and unconscious, having been thrown down the stairwell by Espinosa. Lawrence tends to the injured while Jake goes with Danny to investigate, followed a few seconds later by the nosy reporters after being told to remain downstairs. They return to Espinosa's apartment, where the cleaning lady frantically tries to escape before collapsing to the ground dead. Mrs. Espinosa is now covered in blood and charges at Danny, but he puts her down with a few rounds to the chest. Scott captures everything on camera and Angela demands to rewatch what even just happened, while more of the residents begin to emerge at the commotion. A student named Sadie and her chihuahua get escorted downstairs, while Jake goes around collecting the douche Randy, as well as an immigrant couple Juahir and Nadif. Next is a resident named Elise, who's suffering the same symptoms that Mrs. Espinosa had, but she's grouped with the rest anyway. Before leaving the room, Scott's attacked by an infected rat that he kills, but none of the other people see it. They all begin to panic as Jake searches for a way to escape the building, but they're under CDC quarantine and get told to just remain calm. Yuri suggests they go to his office on the second floor and leap down off the balcony, but the soldiers are already there to begin sealing off the windows. Jake believes they're being quarantined due to a nuclear, biological or chemical threat, so tensions rise with Danny as everyone thinks that he knows something because he's the authority. It makes him pull his gun to assert his dominance before the officer calms down, and they return to the lobby to figure out how to escape. Angela documents that all of the phones, radios and internet have been taken down and begins interviewing tenants like a little girl named Briana. She's currently sick and says that her mother Kathy took their dog to the vet because he's also not doing too well. Meanwhile, Lawrence diagnoses the conditions of the injured, like Fletcher having a broken leg and probably internal damage that he won't recover from. The vet now realizes that all of the infected have symptoms similar to that of rabies, but unfortunately that is still incurable with modern medicine. However, the symptoms are presenting themselves at an alarming rate, so Lawrence warns everyone not to get any blood in their open wounds. Angela's interviewing Bernard to learn that he's Sadie's roommate and is allowed to go upstairs to his apartment one time because he has a large stash of drugs to help the injured. A zombified Fletcher comes walking out, awkwardly standing on his compound fracture before they're able to subdue him and lay him back out on the table. The officer begins to argue with Randy over the importance of remaining downstairs as the reporters find Sadie and Bernard sneaking back to their apartment to check the news for any information. When they get upstairs, Espinosa's infected dog corners them, but Randy must have convinced Danny to let him leave because he's trapped in the elevator when the dog turns on him. The others listen to it tear him to shreds before reaching the apartment, where they watch a televised report of police telling everyone that the building's already been evacuated. Just then the power goes out and Elise appears in a crazed state, attacking Angela, but Scott beats her to death with his camera. After cleaning off the lens, they go downstairs, where Danny informs them that the CDC told them to wait inside until they can run blood tests on everyone. Lawrence says that rabies is only detectable in brain matter, while we learn that Juahir has a paralytic father that's still in their apartment, but we never see him. Some of them speculate that he's the cause, while others the sick little girl, while Yuri gives another possibility that it's the man from Boston who rented the attic apartment but hasn't been seen for a long time. Soon 2 CDC agents arrive in their hazmat suits and order Scott to turn off the camera, but it secretly remains on to record the event. One of the agents takes a brain sample from Fletcher, but he suddenly attacks and bites one of the disease controller's necks. Everyone flees from the room but lock Lawrence inside with the zombified Fletcher, who kills him, spraying blood everywhere. They demand answers from the surviving CDC agent, who reveals that yesterday an infected dog killed the other animals at the shelter. They traced Briana's dog back to the apartment building, but Kathy insists that her daughter only has bronchitis. She suddenly turns and bites into her mother's neck before running upstairs, so Dania is given a syringe by the health inspector to sedate her. Still trying to protect her daughter, Kathy gets handcuffed to the railing to stop her fighting, while Angela, Scott, Jake and Danny go hunting. They find Briana's led them back to Mrs. Espinosa's apartment, but only the maid's lying there and the old lady's missing. They locate the girl standing motionless, but when Danny attempts to sedate her, Briana bites him in the neck and they struggle to get her off. When they run away, Mrs. Espinosa springs out, but Jake bludgeons her to death with his sledgehammer on the way past. As they rush down to the lobby, everyone else is running up, terrified as the infected are breaking through the shutters. Unable to close it, they retreat upstairs, but Angela isn't able to unlock Kathy's handcuffs, so she's forced to leave her to be eaten. As everyone continues to go up, Jwahir and Nadif join the infected when they run to their own place and Lawrence chases them inside. The survivors hide in an empty apartment where everyone insists they're not bitten except for the CDC agent, who they lock separately behind glass doors. Angie also notices that Sadie's eating her own fingers, so Bernard pleads with them not to kill her and attempts to cut his way out of the apartment window to call for help. He gets headshot from a sniper positioned across the street when Yuri suddenly remembers that he has keys to the basement sewers in his apartment. Before he says which room, the health inspector attacks him through the glass doors, so Wanda tries to save him, but an infected Sadie kills her also. Jake, Angie and Scott are the only survivors and run downstairs while Jake stomps an infected Nadif to death and they pass a deceased Kathy. They learn the location of Yuri's apartment from the mailboxes, but the mother resurrects, forcing the group to take the elevator once Jake sledgehammers the dog trapped inside. He knocks back the charging James and they take the elevator up, but it opens at the second floor, allowing Sadie to attack them. Jake fights her back before they spill out onto the level and Sadie almost bites Angela, but Scott finally puts down the camera to help. He breaks her neck and Angie recuperates before they run into an infected Jwahir, who's quickly thrown from the balcony by Jake. They reach Yuri's apartment where Jake fights off the infected until Angela can locate the sewer key amongst the mess. When they try to run back to the basement, Jake's bitten by Yuri and left for dead, while Angela and Scott run upstairs past wandering Wanda to avoid the infected. They lock themselves inside the attic apartment and find a homemade laboratory with cages of animal test subjects. They learn from newspaper clippings that the tenant was part of a Doomsday cult that broke into a chemical weapons lab and stole the mutated rabies. As Angela and Scott continue through the apartment, they find a recording of an unintelligible voice when a trapdoor swings open from the attic. Scott sticks his camera up to investigate, but an infected boy breaks the light, leaving the rest of the movie to be shown through the camera's night vision. The pair begin to hear loud banging around the apartment when a tall, ghoulish man comes inside, walking around unaware of the reporter's presence. The pair try to sneak past him, but the tall man attacks Scott, causing him to drop the camera towards Angela. When she picks it up, she sees the man eating Scott alive, letting out a whimper and giving her location away. He doesn't kill her at first, but after exactly 40 seconds of her crawling towards the camera, Angela's grabbed by the leg and dragged into the dark. And the movie ends.